Hello everyone, welcome to this demo session on SAP UI5 and Fiori training with OData services. My name is Anubhav and I'm being training on SAP UI5 and Fiori since last 4 years. I worked more than 26 Fiori implementations by far, all the different types of applications in SAP Fiori, and we will be discussing about SAP UI5 and Fiori with a simple demo in today's class. So that is what we will be discussing. So in today's class, we will start and look at the basics of SAP UI5 and Fiori. We will also discuss what is that you need to know to be part of SAP UI5 and Fiori. And we will also discuss in our course what is the structure of our course. So this training will also include all the topics which I mentioned at the bottom, which includes HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. I will also cover complementary object-oriented ABAP session. And something which is very unique of this course is these latest concepts in Fiori, which you will find that very few trainers or almost no trainer will cover these topics as part of their training, which includes component.js, routing, manifest, and custom controls. Majority of the time when you go for an online training, you will observe the trainers will cover all the concepts using copy paste of code. So they will have a ready-made sample of code which they would have downloaded from somewhere. They will copy the code and they will paste it into the development environment and they will just show you the output. And that is how they complete their training. But this is not going to happen in case of my training. I will write every single line of code in front of you so you can understand the code line by line. That will be the unique thing you will see and observe in my trainings. Moving on to the course structure. This will be the structure of our course. It's divided into 4 phases. First, I will prepare the basic foundation for SAP UI5 for all of you, because majority of the people who are watching and present in today's demo are ABAP colleagues or people who are working on basis, or you may be working on BI, BO, CRM development or WebDin Pro development. So you're somehow related to SAP related developments, but unable to find the right guidance how to get started with UI5. You're observing there is a shift in the industry. Companies are implementing different SAP products like SAP S4HANA, SAP Business Suite 7i, and there are also companies who are working purely on cloud solutions. The screens for these cloud solutions are based on SAP Fiori, for example, Hybris Marketing Cloud. So you see there is a need for you to upgrade your skills and come to SAP UI5 and Fiori, but you are not able to find the right guidance. So here in this course, we will start with very basic as if you are a college pass out. Once again, I would like to repeat, there is no prerequisite for this course for you to learn with me, because I will cover all the basic things which are prerequisite for this course. On the other side, if you try to take online training from any other trainer, majority of them would expect you to know these basic things. But I have already included these things as part of my course. Second phase of the course, we will move on to SAP UI5 framework and controls. We will look at the architecture of SAP UI5, where we will talk about aggregations, properties, events, methods, control hierarchy, how the UI controls are structured in SAP UI5, and how to get started with UI5 application development using MVC architecture. Those who know WebDin Pro ABAP already, the architecture of SAP UI5 is also almost same. We follow same MVC design pattern to code in SAP UI5 applications. Then in the third phase of the course, we will move towards Fiori-based development. Fiori is all about user experience, but the backend technology or the technology on which SAP Fiori is running is again SAP UI5 framework. So we will look at how to develop a custom Fiori app from scratch. And then we will also look at different flavors, different varieties of apps like work list, master detail, search list, all these different varieties of Fiori app development from scratch. Just to remind you once again, all of that will be without copy paste of code. I will not do any copy paste of code like majority of the trainers are doing, because that way you will not be able to understand stuff properly. Towards the end of this course, we will look at OData service development, how to create OData service. But before that, we will understand what is an OData service. I would like to inform you that there is no knowledge of Java required to learn SAP Fiori. So no Java knowledge is required to create a Fiori app from scratch. It's not required. This is a myth. Some of the trainer may confuse you, but you don't need any Java knowledge. You need the knowledge of JavaScript, and that will be covered in the course. The another advantage of this course is the entire course will be done on SAP WebIDE. We will be using SAP WebIDE as our development environment for developing our UI5 and Fiori applications. If you see, majority of the trainers are using Eclipse as their development environment, which is now not getting that much of popularity because majority of the companies are now going ahead with the development of Fiori related apps using SAP WebIDE. So without wasting further time, let's get started and understand what is SAP UI5. So as I mentioned, SAP UI5 is nothing but it's a framework. So SAP UI5 is a framework to develop responsive web application. What is responsive web application? The word responsive doesn't mean fast. Remember, this is also a very important interview question. What do you mean by a responsive web application? A responsive web application is an application. Once you develop such an application, it has capability to adapt itself in all the devices. So you develop an application, you run it in mobile, you run it in tablet, or you run it in desktop device. It gives you a coherent user experience. It gives a very good coherent user experience to you. Okay, it doesn't need, you don't need to code application separately. One application code which can support all the different devices with a great user experience. That's what called a responsive web application. It has nothing to do with performance. So that's what SAP UI5 is. It's a framework which allows you or which helps you to develop responsive web applications. These applications are can be executed on different platforms like Android, Windows, Mac, different browsers, and different devices. Okay, that's what exactly your responsive web application. So more towards the devices is why we call it as a responsive web application. So you can see here another word which I've used called framework. What is framework? Framework is nothing but it's a collection of libraries. It's a collection of libraries, and each library includes classes, and each class include methods. So you will, whenever you say we are using a framework, you're basically using collection of libraries. Each library include lot of classes, and each class include lot of methods which you will use to develop your application. That's what exactly framework is. So UI5 is a framework. Okay. Now, many times I have seen lot of demos on internet. People cannot explain difference between HTML5 and UI5. And majority of the time when we are sitting over a tea with our colleagues in company, we talk about HTML5 and UI5 and we mix up the stuff. This is another interview question, the difference between HTML5 and UI5. What is the difference between HTML5 and UI5? Remember guys, these both are not same. We will talk about this interview question in detail when I take you to HTML5 chapter. As you can see our course structure, this is going to be our first chapter. Since this class is a demo class, I will show you creating our first Fiori app today, but I will not show you HTML5. Okay. So this is one interview question we will be putting some lights on. All the interview questions we will discuss during our training. So difference between HTML5 and UI5. This is going to be one interview question we will look at later point of time in our next class. Okay. So by far what we have understood, SAP UI5 is a framework to develop responsive web applications. The applications can be executed on different platforms, different browsers, and different devices. Now, before we also get deep into UI5, let's quickly understand the evolution of SAP UI technologies. The first thing which SAP have come up when SAP have started, so you all know the very known three-tier architecture. So you have presentation layer. This is what majority of our ABAP people will know, or even those who are working on SAP. You have application layer, and then finally you have your database layer. These are all the three layers in our SAP three-tier architecture. Yeah. So presentation layer is just kind of a dummy layer which is only used for the input and output purpose. Application layer is the true SAP application where all your application code gets executed, all your processing logic is executed. So your ABAP program executes in application layer using a driver program, and database layer is used for storing all the data. So as far as the presentation layer is concerned, the first presentation layer which was introduced was SAP GUI. So you use SAP Logon Pad to connect to SAP GUI, and then you use the SAP GUI typically to connect to your ABAP system and use your day-to-day work like writing a program, executing a program, performing all the reports, running the reports. All that is done using SAP GUI. Then the dot-com bubble have come in 1990s days, and people started consuming applications, business applications on browsers. So when it came to the browsers, with the evolution of software industry, SAP have also introduced technologies which helps you to run SAP UI or SAP applications in browser. Can anybody name some technologies which supports running or building and running SAP applications in browser? Anyone? Can you name some of these technologies? You can type your answer in chat box. Can you name? BSP. Correct. WebDyn Pro. So WebDyn Pro was available in WebDyn Pro Java, WebDyn Pro ABAP flavor, and then there was BSP technology, Business Server Pages, which were mainly used in SAP CRM Web Client Framework. So these two technologies have come. Then the world evolved again, and then people started consuming business application on mobile devices like tablets, like mobiles, tablets, palm tops. Different devices have come, smartwatches. Okay, so what will happen here is people have started using applications on mobile devices. So there are basically three variety of devices here. So you have a mobile phone like this, then you have a tablet. So I will just quickly draw a tablet, and then you have also desktop based applications. So these are all the variety of devices which have come up in the world. and people started consuming it. So SAP have again evolved and relooked at their UI strategy, user interface strategy, and they have come up with SAP Fiori technology and SAP UI5 framework. Okay, so behind the scenes, SAP Fiori is nothing but all about certain guidelines which you have to follow to achieve a great user experience, which we will talk about. It's a collection of standard Fiori apps. That's what Fiori is. But the technology used to build the Fiori app is UI5 framework. Okay, so that's where SAP Fiori UI5 came into picture, and SAP UI5 uh, have gained a lot of popularity because it can be now used to build a single application which can run on all devices, all browsers, and all platforms. That's why it's getting so much of popularity. And there are a lot of SAP products, functional products like SAP S4 HANA, SAP Business Suite Latest, SAP Suite UI, which is new modeled applications. Then SAP Hybris. Hybris was one company acquired by SAP. So all the Hybris related products, SAP BIDE, which was also there since quite long time, was also changed to BIDE by cloud. So, and then there are independent products, a lot of small products which are deployed in directly in the cloud by SAP. Those are all using SAP new UI5 technology and Fiori user experience. Okay, so a lot of cloud applications were also built. So these all uses SAP UI5. That's why you see a lot of demand in the market these days with regard to SAP UI5 and Fiori. This was the evolution, and that's why we are here today to learn SAP UI5 and Fiori. Okay, let's move on now. So how are you going to start? So as you know, it's a framework. So framework is a collection of libraries. Similarly, in SAP UI5 now, we have libraries. So if I just quickly get inside this framework, inside the SAP UI5 framework, it will have libraries. So what are all the different libraries the framework has? So framework typically has two types of libraries, and this entire UI5 framework is actually built in two parts. The first part is called SAP UI5 design time part, design time component. The second part of SAP UI5 is SAP UI5 runtime component. What is SAP UI5 design time component? Design time component includes all the libraries, classes, and functionality which is responsible for you to develop a new application from scratch by using these libraries. Okay, so basically it's all about design. It's all about creating something new from scratch. You can use these libraries to create something new of your own because it's a framework, and framework allows you to build something by using framework libraries functionalities. Okay, runtime component is responsible for execution of your Fiori application. So for example, in ABAP, when you run an ABAP program, it's been submitted to SAP application layer, and there is a concept of driver program in SAP application layer which runs your ABAP program. Okay, there is nothing called magic. So there is somebody who is executing it, who is compiling it. Like for example, you cannot run a C program in a notepad. You need C compiler who can understand that code and convert your code to machine language which your hardware or operating system can understand, right? Same way here, when you want to execute it, you have to have some component or some development done by SAP who can understand the code what you have written. Okay, we will go deep dive inside UI5 and see what happens behind the scenes when you run an SAP UI5 application. What happens behind the scenes? How framework understand your code? How framework convert your code to equivalent browser understandable code? All that we will get into it in detail when we will get into our discussions for UI5 deep dive. Okay, so this is just a demo, so I will just cover an overviews for you to ramp up, and then we will get into system and create a very small kind of application. Okay, so what do we do here? We will look at now the design time component APIs. So what are all the libraries we have it? So we have different category of libraries. So we have a library called sap.ui.commons. Then we have sap.ui.ux3. We have sap.ui.suit UI control, suit UI commons. Then we have sap.ui.table library. We have sap.ui.layout library. We have then sap.m library. We have sap.ui.unified library, sap.ui.comp library. We have sap.viz library for visualization. We have SAP Unified for upload and download features. So that's your framework actually. These are all the libraries of your framework. These libraries together known as control libraries because they will provide you controls, UI controls like button. If you want to create a button on the screen, you can use SAP M or UI Commons to create a button on the screen. These are called control libraries because they will provide you control. Like you can create a table on the screen using SAP UI table libraries. So they are called control libraries. Then there are something called core libraries, which helps you to build or write some functionality. So core library sits in the bottom of UI5 here, and these libraries can be used. SAP UI core. This is one library, very famous library, which we will be using. These are core functionalities. We will get into it and understand how this core library works. Okay. Then SAP UI core, SAP UI model, sap.ui.view. All these are different core libraries we have it. View is actually comes under control library, but I'm just putting it as a core library because you can use it with combination of any of these libraries always. And then the bottom of the framework in SAP UI5 is built using the open standards, and these open standards are nothing but HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. Lot of open standards are being used to build SAP UI5 framework. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we have jQuery, we have less, we have data.js. These are all the open standards in the industry. These are all open sources on top of which SAP UI5 framework is built. So these libraries are also built on top of what these things are. Okay. So these are all the things on which SAP UI5 framework is built. You have then Ajax. So all these things are open standards. So now out of these open standards, the most important open standards are these four, which every web application developer must know. But since we are ABAPers and we have even worked with WebDin Pros, some of you have worked with WebDin Pro, there was no need to learn these things. But when it comes to UI5, since our coding programming will be also done in jQuery, we got to touch upon these basics. So don't worry, there is no prerequisite for my course. You just have to come regularly for classes and I will make you ramp up on all these things. So I will cover in my course all these things, which you will see majority of the trainers will not cover or they will charge you separately for these things. That becomes your design time component. When it comes to runtime component in SAP UI5, you have something called renderer, which is responsible for converting your app to a browser readable format. You have some more runtime libraries, server side libraries. So these things will be part of it, the runtime component. We will discuss about them in detail in upcoming chapters. Okay, that becomes your complete UI5 framework. Okay, now on the front end side, you will have support for desktops, support for tablets, and you have support for mobile. This is the support you have it. Now remember guys, some of these libraries have been deprecated by SAP. SAP do not recommend you to use some of these libraries. Okay, they have been deprecated. So the ones which I'm highlighting in the red, these libraries have been deprecated. Deprecated doesn't mean you can't use them. It means there is no further support No further enhancements, improvements which will be provided by SAP. So you should avoid using these libraries. But still, in some projects, old projects, these libraries have been used. So we need to be little careful. We will also look at these libraries, how to use these libraries, so that in case if you are going into a maintenance project where these libraries are used by any chance, you don't get affected. You know them, okay, these libraries I've worked on. Okay, but majority of the time these are all the libraries which are used. sap.m, as you can see, M stands for mobile. This was the library which was developed for preparing or creating Fiori applications, Fiori user experience applications. So this is the major library which we all use to build the Fiori applications or UI5 applications. Okay, and then these libraries are also can be used together. So that's the framework as far as the UI5 is concerned. So now what we will do is we will go into the system and we will create our first Fiori application. Okay, very simple application. Now before we do this, we need to load this framework. As you all know that before you write any program, you need to initialize something. So typically in any programming language, whenever you write a program in any programming language, what are all the steps we do? So the first step which we do is some initialization. So any programming language, you will do initialization before you start writing your program. So in this, as part of this initialization, you do some declaration, or basically you will load something, load the necessary dependencies, right? So you will load the necessary requirements to run your program. Like in C program, we typically used to write hash include studio.h, conio.h. So we are actually loading the dependencies in C program, right? Using that statement. That is the first part which you will do as part of any program which you write. The second step, when you write a program, you do some declaration. So as part of declaration, you will create your data variables used in program. That is what you will be declaring. All the declaration, your variables will be declared. And third part, you will write your actuals program, business or orchestration logic. So all your business and orchestration logic will be written as the third step of your program. Here you will write all the manipulation of variable. You will write all the if and buts, yeah, if condition, looping, all that logic you will write in the actual business logic and orchestration logic of your program. You can also call another programs, you can call functions, all that you will typically do in the next step. Towards the end of the program, you will do some cleanup because you want to now close the program. Before even cleanup, you will show the output to the user. Yeah. So output will be one step. After your manipulation done, you show the output and then you clean up the things which you have opened up, the things which you want to clear, variables, you want to settle down, you want to commit your transaction or something, all that you do it. So these are all the steps typically whenever we do any programming, whenever we want to write any program, these are all the steps which we all typically follow, isn't it? Same thing applies here in SAP UI5 also. If you want to create a SAP UI5 program, the first thing you need to do is you need to load the necessary dependency. Now, what is a dependency here for us? The dependency is this framework. You have to load this framework first of all. And this framework in your application gets loaded using something called Bootstrap in UI5. So Bootstrap in UI5 will help you to load SAP UI5 framework in your program, in your browser. Okay, so when you run the program is actually going to run in this case in a browser because SAP UI5 is a technology which is built for mobile and browser. So you will run your program in a browser. So in the browser, all the necessary dependencies, which includes your UI5 framework, will get loaded. And how does that get loaded? Because you have to code something called a bootstrap. So you will be coding a bootstrap code, okay, which you will be coding to load all the necessary dependencies. So that is the first step. The second step is initialization. There is no initialization in this case, which is already you are doing it. Okay, sorry. The first step itself was this initialization, which was loading bootstrap. So this was your first step. Load the necessary dependencies. So here UI5 framework is the dependency. So you're loading it. Okay. So loading of bootstrap. That's what you will be doing as your first step. The next step, what you will do is you do declaration. So here you will create your control. So you will be writing a piece of code to create your control. You will create a new control. And then here in this code, you will be basically showcasing this control to the user. So you display the control to user on the screen, and then output will be displayed to the user when you run the program. And after that, user interact with it, and then you write some orchestration processing logic for clicking on buttons or navigating, clicking on navigation buttons. All that orchestration logic you will be writing in your actual program. So these are all the steps which we have it now to write even a SAP UI5 program. So first is bootstrap. So what does the bootstrap means here? The bootstrap is nothing but responsible for loading of your UI5 resources. So for that, you have to use a special statement. I will explain you the usage of this statement in detail when you learn, when I teach you HTML5 and JavaScript. Right now, just understand this code you have to use to load the dependencies, to load the UI5 framework. Okay, so that is what you will be using. So let me quickly show you what code you have to write as part of loading UI5 framework. So you have to load UI5 framework using statement called script statement, and then you have to put ID of the script always as SAP UI bootstrap. That's what you will be putting. And then you will be putting the source from where are you loading the UI5 framework. So we will be using SAP WebIDE as our development environment. And SAP WebIDE development environment comes already together with SAP UI5 framework installed. Okay, it's pre-configured with WebIDE. So we can just say resources. Resources means please load UI5 from your resources. To WebID, we will tell WebID will load it for us. And the name of the framework is SAP UI core.js. .js stands for JavaScript file. .js is JS file. Remember, I reiterate, there is no requirement for you to know anything to join my course. I will cover all the prerequisite as part of my course already. HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, everything I will cover. You don't need to know anything. If you're just college pass out, it's more than enough for you to join my course. Okay. Then moving on, you have to now tell which are all the libraries you would like to load. Because you see, there are so many libraries, not even just these ones. These are major ones, but there are so many of them. Now, if user or if browser load all the libraries, it will take time. So SAP UI5 have told you to specify which library you are going to use. So only load that library which you are planning to use. So data hyphen. So you got to mention now the library name which you will be loading as part of the framework, or sorry, in the browser. So S data hyphen SAP UI libs, that you have to mention. And then I would like to basically load sap.m library. So I will mention that. You can load multiple libraries by specifying comma and the library name. The next comes is an amazing parameter which SAP offers us, data hyphen SAP UI theme. A theme parameter while loading will help you to specify SAP UI5 framework, that what kind of look and feel you would like to load. So there are different themes provided by SAP which will change the look and feel of your complete application. Okay, that's what SAP have done. So you can change the complete look and feel of your application using theme parameters. So typically we load it SAP Blue Crystal theme. Okay, that's what we load. There are different themes. I will discuss about them in upcoming chapters. So this is your initialization code. Hope this is clear to everybody. What is the meaning of every single line? If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Okay. Then this is the initialization part to load this framework in the browser, because you're going to run ultimately in a desktop, tablet or mobile in a browser itself. So you got to load the framework. That's your initialization code. The next is creating data variables. So how do you create data variables? So you will be using a special syntax called var, and then you're going to use your variable name. So let me just write in small letters. Variable name equals to, again, sorry, you will use a keyword called new keyword. This is a keyword. So any keyword I'm writing in the bold letters, so you will know it. Then you got to use the library name, the library which you will be using. Dot. And then we will be using here the control class name. Control class name like button, table, you want to use a text field, you want to use a switch control, you want to use drop down, all that is class name inside that library. And then you will put here sid comma s properties. That's what you will be doing here in this. Now what is sid? Sid is nothing but unique id of your UI control. Those who have done dialog programming in ABAP, you all know that we always have to assign ID of our control in Screen Painter. When you create a UI, when you create a screen element, or in WebIDE also, we have to assign a unique ID to our control. That's what this SID is. Okay, unique ID of your UI control on the UI. Then comes is S properties. S properties will include all the properties of your control. Like, for example, you're putting a button. So when you put a button, you will not put a button for any reason. You will put button on the UI for some purpose, like save button for saving, clear button to clear the data, back button to go back to the previous screen. So you have to give label to the button. So how will you give it? Using properties. So properties are the control properties for configuring control, okay, control attributes. Example, color, size, width, height, text, all that will be defined using properties. So we always mention these properties in curly braces. So there are three types of brackets or braces we use in SAP UI5, and all three have different meanings. So let me just quickly tell you them names. These are very basic stuff which sometimes we don't care, but these things hamper you a lot in real projects. When you're talking to another developer, when you're talking to your manager, these things helps you actually when you know the names of it. The first type of bracket which we use is parenthesis. The second is this one, which is known as curly braces. So remember these names, they are going to help you a lot, and they have significance when you're coding. Okay, I will teach you these significances in detail when we will go to next chapter. Then this is called bracket. So when you're giving properties, the properties are always given inside curly braces. Okay, and when you're creating a control, you can see here we have used parenthesis. So these symbols have a significance when you're coding. These are very basic things which sometimes we don't pay attention to, and they hamper you a lot while coding. And that's why you have seen that you were unable to successfully code. Some of you may be already working in Fiori. You were able to build a simple Fiori app, complete your task in the company, but you were unable to understand what you have done because you followed some tutorial from internet. It taught you something, you copy pasted the code, you adapted the code, somehow you got your job done, but still you don't have confidence. You want to truly understand what's going on behind the scenes. What does it every single line mean? And that's what I will do. I will show you the meaning of every single line, writing every single line of code. No copy paste. No copy paste of code. Trainers who are doing copy paste, they themselves, some of them themselves don't know concepts. They are just learned from somewhere, took those examples and become a trainer. They are just teaching you ready-made examples which you can do it yourself. Why do you want to spend money for that? You can just understand where to copy, how to paste. Control C, Control V. You can also produce output. Why do you need training for that? Correct? So don't go with such trainers who do copy paste of code. There's a question here from Suryakant. Is this case sensitive? Do we have programming standards for defining object and variable? Absolutely yes. It is case sensitive because it is JavaScript methodology of code. Okay, I will explain you JavaScript as part of my foundation. So you can see we will start from tomorrow these topics, and there I will show you some funda foxes, some important things to remember. Like this thing is a funda fox. Okay, this thing is something is a funda fox. You need to keep it in mind when you're coding. Similarly, the code is case sensitive, so you need to be careful. If you put capital V in the var, it will not work. I will show you in a minute in the system. Okay. Now, do we have a good debugger in UI5 that is step line by line? Yes, we have it. Browser is your debugger. We will discuss about that in our JavaScript chapter. So remember guys, I will not be able to cover everything, all your questions probably in today's session. But yes, I will just show you the basic creation of first app so you understand my teaching technique today. You will understand how am I going to teach, what is that am I going to teach. I already covered structure of the course, so that way you will understand things. But our actual our sessions will start from tomorrow. So from tomorrow onwards everything will be smooth. You will go pretty much in a flow, and if you follow the flow you will understand things from the scratch. Okay, so that's about your declaration part. You have created your variable. You have created a control on the screen. Sorry, you have created a control variable. But this control is not visible to the user on the UI. To make it visible to the user on the UI, you have to call a special method of the control. So you need to use control object of the control of control, and dot place at method you have to call. P is small, A is capital, and then you have to put ID of control. Okay, so this way you will be placing your control into the DOM, into the browser. So with this code you have to place your control object on the screen, and then it will be visible on the screen to us. Okay, and then you execute your program, it will display the output on the screen. Now, before we get into it, let's quickly understand structure of a web application. Any web application when you create, actually it's an HTML page. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is used to create static web page. So any page, any browser-based application you always start with an HTML. It starts with an HTML tag like this. Okay, this is how it starts with. And then inside this you will have a header tag, end of header tag, and you have a body tag, end of body tag. So the golden rule of the game is whatever you put inside this body is what user can see. Whatever you put inside header is what user cannot see. Okay, remember, anything which you want to display to the user has to be as part of body tag of HTML. So we will be starting with an HTML page like this, and then we will be following this methodology what I have pointed out here, and then accordingly we will be displaying it output on a screen. Okay, so let's go ahead to our development environment. I will show you in the next class how to set up your development environment. But right now, I will not show you how did I set up this development environment, which is WebIDE, but I will right away just get started with this development environment. So let me launch my development environment. It's running on the browser, which is nothing but SAP WebIDE. I have already set it up. It's absolutely free. You don't need to pay anything to anybody to get use this development environment. You see, it's not launching because my server is not on. So after you set up WebIDE, you have to just start the server here, And once this is started, you will be able to run SAP WebIDE in your browser. We will talk about the development environment in detail, how to set up SAP WebIDE in your computer in our first session starting tomorrow. Okay, so I come here and now I will just connect to my account, and then it will launch the development environment. Just like in ABAP, if you want to write the code, you have to go to SE38 or SE80, right? If you want to write a report program. So then that is what you have to do. Similarly, this is our development environment where we will be launching the code. So now you see there's something called workspace. So what is a workspace? It's a folder in which all the projects will be created. So now let me create our first project. So I right click, new folder I will create, and I just say my first Fiori, or I just say my demo app. Click on OK. I created a project for us. Now what happens behind the scenes? The moment you create this project, system needs to store the files of the project. So system creates a folder in your computer, and where this folder will be, it will be in your WebIDE directory, server workspace, name of your user, and then here you can see orient content, and you see a folder got created in your computer behind the scenes. You see when I created here this, a folder got created. This folder is empty because there's no file yet. Let's add our first HTML file. Right click, new file, and I say index.html. This is a typical naming convention we follow. The whole idea of my training is not just to teach you concepts, but also to teach you standards which you have to follow to become a good developer. So anybody can code, but a good developer is who code with standard. So there's a process of quality as part of your company, that they will all do code review of your code. And you are always worried when you do a copy paste of code, you're worried whether the code which you copy pasted is up to the standard or not. Somehow you were able to produce the output, but was that code up to the standard? Yeah, so you would get bad ratings even though you've done your work, but you have not done it with standards. So keep in mind that this training we will focus also a lot of standards which we have to follow. We will not create an application like a college project. It has to be a extremely good quality, which anybody, if they come and review, you should get good review comments, not bad review comments. So here we go, index HTML file. I will start with an HTML. And now inside this we have anyways header and body. Let me increase the zoom size so you can look at the code. So header. So no copy paste of code, guys. Line by line, every single line of code has to be written here. So that's my header and body of the code. And then let me just quickly go ahead and write some content. Sorry, a div tag. Div stands for division tag in HTML. We will talk about it in our next chapter. Right now, understand it's just an element in HTML, and I will give an ID to this HTML element called content. I save this. I will also show you printing some heading. Let's say H1 tag. It's called heading tag in HTML to print something on the screen. So H1 tag, and I say welcome to SAP Fiori demo. Save this. Let's execute this. We're going to see something on the UI. I click on the HTML page and click on run button. When I run, you see welcome to SAP Fiori demo is got printed on the UI. This is kind of a hello world program, but we don't want to do this. We want to go little advanced now. What I will additionally do here is now I will put some content here in this here. So basically now I want to load SAP UI5 framework as part of my file, correct? As I told you. So we will be calling bootstrap. Now before that, I will also just provide a property here called class property, and just name this as SAP UI body. I will explain you the purpose of this in our upcoming chapter when we will talk about CSS. Okay, that time you will understand the meaning of this property. So right now just don't pay attention to this. I will explain about it in detail in upcoming chapter. Let's load our UI5 library now so that we can start using SAP UI5 code. So we will put our bootstrap. So I will put the boot initialization of UI5 library, script tag ID equals to SAP UI bootstrap. That's the ID. Then I will put src from where it should be loaded. Okay, that's what we will be putting. Src equals to resources slash SAP UI core.js. That's my resource. Okay, you can put enter also, no problem. And then data hyphen SAP UI libs equals to sap.m library I want to use. And then I want to use data hyphen SAP UI theme equals to SAP underscore blue crystal. Okay, never copy paste the code, guys, until you understand the code, and never learn from trainers who are teaching copy paste. They are all cheating. They're all cheating. I can easily do this coding without writing this much, and I can finish demo in 2 minutes. I can finish my complete course in 5 minutes. I can show you 500 examples with copy paste, but will that help? It will not help. When I was learning UI5 6 years back, it was difficult for me because majority of this, blogs, everything what I saw, everybody says copy this code, paste it here, paste it here, paste it here, output will come. But that will not help me. That will not help me professionally to grow and build something of my own, something from scratch. What if you get a maintenance project where you have to change the existing code, adapt it according to the need? Then you are gone, because your requirement cannot always be static. It will keep on changing. So you need to know framework, you need to know concepts so you can build things on your own. I save this. Let me come back and refresh now on the right side, or I can just click again and restart. And you see it is loading. There's no problem by far. So by far it should have loaded by far the UI5 framework by now. Okay. Another thing which I want to now do is right click on the project and new, and there is an option. Okay, no, fine, no problem. So what we will do next is we will write a script tag. So in this script and script tag, I'm going to write my code now. So first step is done, which is initialization as per our presentation. Initialization is done. Next step, we will move on to create a control. So I want to create a button control. So what I will do is I say var o Spiderman. So that's the name of my control. You see var v has to be small, new library name sap.m, and then I want to create a button control. So this is a button control. Now if you don't know what controls are available, what will be the name of your control in this library, you can do control space and it will show you all the available libraries in the system. So right now it's not showing. There's some problem, I need to cross check, but you can, then it will be visible. So all the names of the control will be visible to you over here. Button control. And now remember, we have to first give argument as ID of the button. So I can say ID is PyD, comma, curly braces to give all the properties that I have to do, curly braces. And now inside this here, we will be giving all the properties. So the first property is the text property for the button. Now you may be wondering, Anubhav, how do you know that there is a text property for button? There is something called SAP UI5 SDK. I will show you and make you understand that SDK. Once you look at SDK, you can find out all the properties, events, aggregation for any control in UI5 libraries. Okay. So right now, just understand this is a property for label of the button, and just put a label as click me. That's it. So this is about creating a new control object. The step number 2 is done. We have created successfully a new control object. Okay. Now, it will not display you the control until you place the control in the body of HTML. That's the basic rule we have learned. So this control is created, but until this control is placed in the body of HTML, it will not be visible to us, correct? For that, we will call a method of this control called place at to place it in my body. In my body of HTML, I see an element called ID div. It's a div element with ID content. So I have to specify the target as content in this content area. place my control. That's what we will be doing. Okay. Now before that, I suspect that my UI5 framework is not loaded, and that is because in WebIDE, when you want to load UI5 framework, you have to also include a special file. That file name is called neoapp.json. Okay, neoapp.json is the file name, which actually helps you to load UI5 framework as part of your running application. Because why I suspect it is because the color of the background color of the page did not change to blue color. If my UI5 framework would have got loaded properly, the background color of this page would have got changed to blue color, but it did not, because these resources were unable to load, unable to find the UI5 library, okay, in the WebIDE. So from WebIDE, when I want to load the resources, the UI5 resources, I have to give the path of the resources, where where the resource actually exists. So I have to create a new app.json file. That file you can also create it quite easily without writing, because right now I have not taught you about JSON. So there is something called JSON. I will discuss about JSON in our JavaScript chapter. So just to make it easy for us to load the UI5 resource properly, we need new app.json file, but it's not yet present. So I will create another project quickly, quick start project with layout editor. Just give OK. You see it created a project. Okay, it's launching that project. And from this project, I will temporarily take this new app.json file. You can see it's available here. This is the file which is available here, and I will temporarily take this new app.json file. I will explain about this file in detail. It's written in a special notation called JSON. Okay, we will talk about JSON in detail in upcoming chapter. Right now, just I'm reusing it. Okay, I'm just reusing it. So don't panic. We will discuss about this in detail, just the way we are doing line by line in upcoming chapter. So I will pick and put it here, and here you see in the roots it's loading the UI5 framework path bootstrap in UI5. So it's putting here the UI5 framework path resources. It's putting the path over here for UI5 framework. So that's my new app.json file, which will tell the UI5 anything starting with /resources has to load this UI5 framework. Okay, that's what exactly being done over here. So that's my new app.json, which I have right now reused it, but later point of time I will show you how to write even this when I teach you JSON. Okay, now I will come back. So I will just put resources, this, save everything. We are good, I guess. Let's come back and refresh the page, and you can see now a blue color have come as a background, which means it has loaded the UI5 framework properly. Okay, it has loaded the UI5 framework properly because we included a new app.json, which is an interface file which helps your project to talk to WebIDE. So this project now is talking to WebIDE environment and loading the UI5 framework properly. So now, but you see your button is not visible on the UI. Why? Why your button not visible? Because you have not placed things in the body of HTML. Remember the rule? Whenever you want to display something, it has to be part of body of HTML. So you have to now place it here in the body of HTML inside this content tag, which is available. So I will call an API for that, spiderman dot place at, and I will place it in the content of HTML. Save this, we are done. Let's come back to the UI and refresh now. And there you go, a new button got created on the screen. Perfect. A very simple example, but yet very effective, because we have written every single line of code on our hand. We have not done any copy paste, and I recommend my students to never do a copy paste until you understand the line of code. Okay, never do a copy paste, and never learn from trainers who are teaching you copy paste. They are not teaching you, they are fooling you. Don't pay anybody for copy paste teaching. You can do it yourself. Okay, so Any questions before we proceed? Well, let's quickly now enable the button click also. So I will just put a press button here, press event. This is an event which gets triggered whenever user click on the button. And now in this, I will write press alert and I say welcome to my website address online Fiori trainings.com. That's what I will do. And then I will also call window dot open and a website address. So basically it should take me to that website. Save it, come back and refresh the page. And let's click on the button. You can see it gives me a pop-up. And on OK, you see it's launching my website. Perfect. So that's what I wanted to show. A very simple demo. You see it has loaded my website. So I'm been teaching SAP UI5 since almost by now 3 years, 3.5 years. So you'll see a lot of examples on my YouTube channel. And also want to quickly show you the trial blog access, what you will get with this training. You're going to get a blog access like this, where you can track the complete course using this blog. You don't have to follow up every time with me about what is the progress of the course. After every class is done, I'm going to post the video of that class here in the session recording section. So you'll see the video will be posted. So if you miss a class by any chance, or you want to refer back the session which you have gone through, you can look at here in the video section, session recording section. I will also put the PPT which we are preparing in the presentation. All the study material will be put here. You can download and keep it with you. Then when it comes to links which I'm showing, like WebIDE download or some other links which I will show, I will put all those links here. So you can click and directly navigate to those links. So basically this will be your repository for all your learning, the blog access. I will give the blog access to each one of you, and then with that you can track the course progress. You will also see the link of joining the session every day. There will be a calendar invite in the blog where you will see the link of joining the session. You can also opt for the complete video course. You can see this is a screenshot of my existing batch where all the videos are available. So total duration for training is 40 hours plus complementary OOPS ABAP chapters, 4 complementary OOPS ABAP sessions. So total duration will be somewhere around 45 to 48 hours. So 45 sessions or 48 hours is about the duration of this course. And we will use only SAP WebIDE. I will also show you introduction of Eclipse to use your Fiori project, but we will use SAP WebIDE as our preferred development environment throughout the complete course. Okay, in next class I will show you how to set up WebIDE, and we will start with HTML5 day 1. So this is a screenshot of existing batch videos. You can see these are all the topics we have covered, and you can also find the course content over here. So with me you can take your knowledge level to quite a new high, because I am offering different variety of courses on UI5. So this is the first course you should get started with. This is the foundation. Anybody who want to step into Fiori and UI5, this is the first thing you have to go ahead with it. Next level will be enhancements, Launchpad and WebIDE. So basically you will learn how to enhance standard Fiori app, how to configure it in the Launchpad, some kind of consultant's work, Fiori consultant work, where it is more about administration of Fiori apps. And then we have ABAP on HANA, the latest cutting edge technology, where you will do a lot of code push down into HANA database. So that is also is on. I don't recommend you to look at the future courses right now. First focus on this. This is your first baby step towards learning. So don't look at upcoming things, but just look at this. This should be your main goal to complete first, and then move on to the next set of things. Time for your questions. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. I will take them up. You can unmute your line and ask the question as well. The first question here is, what is the difference doing the programming in Eclipse and WebIDE? No difference. This is both are just development environments. You can use Eclipse or in WebIDE. There is no difference. I will show you both Eclipse and WebIDE based development. Okay. I will show you both Azure. Any further questions? Anyone? Any further questions? But since these days I am getting demand about from student that please teach only things in WebIDE because companies are using WebIDE, then I've decided to go get started with WebIDE. Okay, we will you build everything in WebIDE itself. Does the initialization always needs to be in HTML header tag, or somewhere else also it will work like in body tag? It will work in body tag, but this is standard. This is a standard practice that you should put it in the header. This is the brain, and brain gets executed first before the any other thing. Okay, before any other thing, brain gets executed first. So that's why initialization is put in the brain. Typically that's how in programming you do. You remember the programming structure, any initialization code is kept on the top, correct? So that's what it's done on the top. First is initialization in the header part of it. Next question, can we connect HANA on demand SAP WebIDE trial account with your server? Yes, you can. You can set up a cloud connector, and with the help of that, you can connect it. I will not offer any OData server. Okay, we can discuss the separately for OData server. Please email me after you join the course. I will explain you how to access OData server. I missed the starting session today. How can I access this video? I will post this video on YouTube. You can access that from the YouTube as well. Next question, instead of downloading SAP WebIDE Personal Edition, yes, you can use your HANA trial account for WebIDE. I recommend to use Personal Edition. Okay. So don't worry what is this question is about. I will explain you what is WebIDE Personal Edition in our next chapter. We will start with installation. You don't need to learn anything from from your own. You just have to come regularly to the session. I will make your knowledge level to the high level automatically from the first class. I will treat you like fresher. So don't think that you don't know something. You can see some discrepancy that people are asking some question which you don't even know. Don't worry about that. Okay, can we connect HANA on demand WebIDE trial account with your server? Yeah, that I already addressed. Does the training include consuming OData service from ECC? Yes, of course. We will see how to consume SAP real OData service from your ECC system in SAP WebIDE in your real Fiori app. Place at method can be used for each control. Yes, absolutely. In the next class, I will show you concept for control hierarchy. That time you will understand that this method comes from base class. Hence, it is available in all the controls. Okay. Will you teach ABAP gateway also? That's what exactly we'll do. When we will build OData service, we will go into SAP gateway server. Can I use WebIDE personal edition to connect to HANA system and use for modeling? No, you cannot. There is a dedicated WebIDE for HANA modeling. But that question is irrelevant for this training. Okay, that question is irrelevant for this training. This training we will not focus on HANA. If you want to go with HANA focus, you can go with my ABAP on HANA training. I have already discussed how to do HANA related programming like information models, SQL script. And recently, 2 days back, I had posted one nice video on SQL script, because if you see trainers on internet, they are fooling us. You know, there are trainers who are teaching on the name of SQL script. They're teaching while loop. Okay, if you check the trainers, there is one session only on while loop. Okay, you see there is, when you look at these sessions, only one session, see 11-minute session only on case statement. What nonsense is this? This is not at all the right way of teaching. They are just increasing their numbers. This is not at all a teaching. Actually, case statement is that make sense to take 11-minute one session on case statement? It's nonsense. Who cares actually? Who cares? I can just go to some online reference book and find the case statement. I will not conduct one complete class on case statement. Just check my SQL script session here. It will be very helpful. You see already coming on top of YouTube. ABAP on HANA training session. I had posted this video about a day or so. You can see the date, 9th of December, day before yesterday. And you see by far I've got 1170 views on that. So people are truly following my training sessions. You can look at the testimonials here posted on videos. You can really find that out, that it's really effective. Okay. So this is true SQL script. On ABAP on HANA training, I'm taking a real-time open item analysis scenario, with which we are doing all the code push down, but not relevant for this training and demo. Once again, I'll close it. So any further questions? Can we ask doubt after training got over? Yes, you can email me, but remember, I will not be able to help you with respect to your project related doubts. I can only help you with training related doubts, because imagine if everybody starts coming with their project related doubt to me, I will not be able to complete my training at all. Yeah. So it's my request to not ask project related doubts. But of course, if you are stuck somewhere, there's a syntax error, or there is an issue, I would definitely be able to help you. But I cannot code for you related to your project. That will be practically impossible for me. Okay. Any further questions? If not, then thank you so much for the time. You can approach to me on my email ID. Let me put the email ID here. You can approach to me on anubhav.abap@gmail.com, and you can also look at my website http://www.onlinefiorytrainings.com. So feel free to get back to me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for latest videos. There are a lot of videos I have updated on YouTube about SAP UI5 and Fiori. You can subscribe to that for latest content. Would you use a standard template for Fiori and elements? I can use it, Chandra, but what will happen is you will not learn anything. If I use template, it will create the entire Fiori app in one shot, but you will not understand anything. And that's the mistake which other trainers are doing. They are just creating projects from template, not teaching student what is component JS, what is router, what is route match handler. When you create a project using template, it takes 5 minutes to teach that, but ultimately what you will take out of it. If somebody come and ask you to change something, do you know which place to change what? Do you know how to include a new view as part of your navigation? Not possible, na? So you need to learn line by line, get used to this, build your knowledge, build your knowledge at artifact level. What is each file is doing? What is the purpose of each line of code? When you build like that, you will be definitely be able to do things. Okay. Whether it is S4 HANA, non S4 HANA, any product, Fiori doesn't change with S4 HANA differently, and hybrids differently. Fiori remains Fiori. Code remains code. It doesn't change based on SAP products. So after learning this, you can work with any Fiori app in any area of SAP. You ran into local server. Can I connect with my client server? I mean, how can I deploy? I will show you that hence how to connect to our gateway server, our WebIDE, and then we can deploy a Fiori app. If you are, little bit in hurry of doing it, you can go and check my YouTube video. I've already explained that. So there's a YouTube video which I already posted, how to set up SAP WebIDE and deploy your code into the system. So set up WebIDE personal edition. It's already covered in my video. Getting started with WebIDE Fiori Part 1. Create your first Fiori app. It's already covered in this video. Let me give you the link of the video. You can refer this if you are right now in need of this. But remember, my course will start from base, from scratch. I will not jump into something advanced which people not able to get it. Okay? You should get started with basics, from scratch. That would be our ultimate goal. With that, it's a wrap on today's demo class. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow in our first session, which starts with HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. And further on, we will move to UI5, Fiori, and Gateway with OData and deployments. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye.